Gaming TVs are an odd niche because it's rare to find a TV that's fully geared to work for console gaming. But nevertheless, there are those few that were made for those big screen console games. If you own a Series S or even a Series X, then these TVs will be everything you'd want and more. Oh, and check the links in the comment section and the description if you fancy taking a look at any of these TVs for yourself. So starting the list somewhat off on the pricey end is the LG C1. This TV is for sure the center of every room that has one situated in it. Its vibrance is difficult to match, and for good reason. For a 55-inch screen, you're looking at paying a whopping price of $1,800. Don't worry, the rest on the list are a lot cheaper, so there's something for everyone. However, if you really want to splurge, then you could even go for the 83-inch version for $6,000. But I'd personally hold back on that one. Anyway, what you can expect from a TV of this caliber is again 4K and 120 Hz simultaneously. That much should be a given at the price range. A big issue that a lot of these great TVs have when it comes to console support is the lack of HDMI 2.1, because that is, of course, what you need to maximize the Xbox's full ability. However, the C1 not only has one, but 4 HDMI 2.1 ports. Maybe a little overkill, but then again, nothing about this TV is subtle, especially not the breathtaking OLED panel. That just takes colors and makes them just 101% more vibrant and contrasting. In fact, I'd argue that alone is better than having 4K. The picture quality is simply as good as it gets, and I mean that. However, as great as that is, it doesn't stop there. LG actually implemented some more gaming-oriented features recently, which allows the user to be able to manually adjust the game mode setting. That means you can adjust the white and black stabilizer as well as the variable refresh rate. I imagine most won't care about that at all, but it's super nice for the tech heads. More importantly though, the input lag sits at below 10 milliseconds, which makes the TV great for competitive gaming as well as story games. Oh, and naturally, both AMD FreeSync and NVIDIA G-Sync are present too. All in all, it's a really beefy TV that'll surmount anything on the list. However, the obvious drawback is the extortionate price, because when it comes down to value for money, the LG C1 probably isn't the best to go for. That is, unless you have a hole to burn in your pocket or are just stupid rich. Sony TVs tend to naturally be more geared towards PlayStations with regard to their many PS-oriented features. However, that's not to say that it won't work really well with an Xbox too. Fortunately, it does, because it's a TV made for gaming in general. 4K and 120 Hz refresh rate that work flawlessly with the Series X or S, all thanks to the addition of HDMI 2.1 ports. At this point, that much is a given. Even if you're only paying $1,000 for it, when it comes to the picture quality, it's a great experience. The panel is just a standard LED panel, but it shines over most other TVs because of its Sony-based technical features. That being their tri-luminous display, which means a wider color range essentially. Then there's the extended dynamic range, but that's just a fancy word for HDR. On the topic of HDR, this TV offers a wider range from Dolby Vision, HDR10, and HLG. When all those nifty little Sony features come together, you get a beautiful and very colorful screen. And on a relatively low budget, the X900 will provide you with a surprising amount of gaming features, including a very low input lag of just 15 milliseconds, variable refresh rate to reduce the stuttering, and 4K upscaling for sub-4K content. However, it is unfortunately missing out on G-Sync or FreeSync. Not that that matters a whole lot with consoles, but yeah. With the Vizio's P, there's a lot of screen for a very reasonable price, which is partly why this TV is so great. For $950, you can get a 65-inch screen that certainly doesn't fall behind in any other departments. For starters, it runs 120 Hz at 4K with HDMI 2.1. It has a respectable LED panel that's complemented by the HDR and full-array local dimming, which mean that the screen can go completely black when needed without the issue of lighting bleed. And that is a really noticeable feature when you're playing darker games because it looks so realistic. The brighter colors are also very bright in comparison, so no matter what the display is showing, every single color will always remain fully contrasting from each other. However, it does not reach the same level of vibrance as OLED panels. Still, it's very impressive nonetheless. Oh, and also, on top of the 120Hz refresh rate, you get ClearMotion 960, which smooths out the frames even more so for gaming on the Series X or S. It really is buttery smooth. Overall, with the Vizio P, you're paying for the enormous size of the TV, and that's exactly what you get. It would be very hard to find a better TV of the same size for under $1,000, so it really is a steal. The cheapest TV on this list is coming in at $800. This is the TCL 6 Series QLED TV. Now, I've spoken about this TV in other videos because it is honestly one of the best value TVs out there. However, it is let down by one thing, and that is that it doesn't support 120Hz at full 4K, instead only being able to run it at 1440p or 2K. Now, that doesn't mean that the TV doesn't support 4K or 120Hz separately, because they do, but you just won't be able to do both together. That's for sure a bummer for the ones who own a Series X, but for the Series S owners, I imagine that's great news because that matches up remarkably well with the Series S specifications. Outside of that discrepancy, you have a full-on QLED TV for just $800. I don't need to announce how much of a steal that is. Of course, that is the smallest version at 55 inches, but it'll go up to 75 inches for a very fair price. With the addition of QLED, you get a super colorful screen with some incredibly deep blacks nicely distinguished from those brighter, more vibrant colors. No, I wouldn't say it looks as good as some more expensive Samsung OLED TVs like the one mentioned earlier, but for less than half the price, the TCL 6 Series is way better value, especially for budget gamers. On the flip side, it does have an exceptional THX certified game mode as well as variable refresh rate, so the overall experience won't feel cheap, and that's for sure. Okay, and now on to an absolutely gorgeous looking TV, the Q80T by none other than Samsung. This TV ain't cheap any way you cut it, but at the higher price tag comes frankly better features. For starters, the Q80T is fully capable of 120Hz at 4K with absolutely no issues, which is incredible. Not only that, but all the HDMI ports are for HDMI 2.1, which is conveniently the exact type you'll need for the Xbox Series X or S to be able to reach that sweet 120 frames per second mark. So right out the gate, it is about as compatible as you can get it. And then, when you factor in the awesome Game Motion Plus mode, it really is beautiful. However, while Game Mode does reduce motion blur and overall stutterness, it will come at the cost of the input lag, which is odd because I would have thought Game Mode would reduce input lag if anything, but hey, you don't have to turn it on. Regardless, with Game Mode off, you can expect an input lag of around 8.7 milliseconds. For reference, most decent TVs have an input lag of near 20 milliseconds, but rarely do they have a sub 10 millisecond input lag, so yeah, this TV really won't fail to impress a gamer. Perhaps the most appealing part of all this, though, is Samsung's infamous QLED panel. In short, that'll take the color vibrance to a whole new level. QLED panels are notably much better than a good handful of other panel types, so that's a huge pro, especially with HDR activated too. Although while it does have HDR enabled, it doesn't have Dolby Vision specifically, if that's something that concerns you. Other features of the Q80T is a variable refresh rate and AMD FreeSync, which both works towards reducing the stutteriness of the frames, and both of which are very much beneficial to gaming. On top of that, a cool little feature that it also has is that any non-4K content that gets plugged into the TV will be automatically upscaled to a kind of 4K replica, which means even older gen consoles will still look really great on it. Again, the link is in the description. Check it out to read further for yourself. Anyways, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below and be sure to like the video. And hey, maybe subscribe if you're feeling generous.